This is going to be a super easy beginner tutorial on how to create a system in which you can send money to other players. So all you would do is simply type the other player's name here, type in an amount, and hit send, and it will work. Obviously it's not going to work right now because I haven't scripted anything, but this is what the final product is going to be. So in order to start, all we've really got over here, this is going to be our main GUI. So all we actually have is just an amount text box, a name text box, and a button. Nothing interesting in any of these at all, just some little styling things that I like to add. But all you really need is just a text box where you can specify the name, a text box where you can specify the amount, and just a simple button. So, the next thing we need is a money system because, well, if you look up here, we don't actually have any money or anything, any sort of way to tell what kind of currency we have. So we're going to quickly make one with leader stats. Now, if you already have one, then I'll put a time scale sort of around this area. Just skip to that. But if you don't have one, then we're going to go over to our server script service. We're going to hit the little white plus. We're going to make a script. We're just going to call this leader stats. Now, if you're confused on what leader stats mean, it's simply a keyword that Roblox uses to just say that we are going to be adding something to the little bit next to our name. So whenever you're adding a value or even a string or a boolean or anything like that that you want next to the character's name in the player list, use leader stats because otherwise it's not going to pop up. So anyway, what we're going to do is first of all we're going to just delete our simple print hello world, and first of all we need to get the player who's joined because we're going to be registering them a new folder called leader stats and giving them the values. So we're going to say game.players.playerAdded :connect function. And then in these little brackets, we're just going to put player because we want to fetch the player object who's been added. And then we're just going to go down a line and we're going to say local leader stats equals instance.new. And then we're going to say folder. So if you're a little bit confused on what instance.new means, that simply means we're going to create something. So we can specify whatever we want in these little speech marks that we want to create. So for example, we could create a part, or we could create a trail, or literally anything, no matter what, but we want a folder here because this is how our leader stats is going to work. So we're going to go down a line and then we're going to say leader stats dot name is equal to leader stats. Then we're going to go down another one and we're going to say leader stats dot parent is equal to player. So what we're doing here is we're saying that the leader stats name is going to be leader stats, which tells Roblox that we want this to be on the little corner where our names are and things. And then we're just going to say, well, where do we want this to actually appear? Like, sure, we can create it, but if we create it, it's just going to end up in our workspace if we don't specify where it needs to go. So we want it to be parented to every single player that joins the game. So we're just going to say player. So every single time a new player is added, we're going to create this, and we're going to name it leader stats, and we're going to give it to that player, that specific player. So now we're going to go down a little bit, and we're going to say local money is equal to instance.new again, and then we're going to say int value. So with values, you have different types of values. So you have a number value, you have an int value, you have a bool value. There's probably some more, but I've forgotten what they are. But they all house different types of variables. So this one is an integer, which is simply just a whole number. So if you had a number value, that's anything that could have decimals or, different significant other points and stuff, which we don't really need. We just want a very simple integer value because we want whole numbers. We want, for example, to say, oh, we have 10,000, not 10,000 for, like different numbers, because that will just confuse it. And we want specific values here. We're going to now say money.name is equal to money. So this is how it's going to appear in our little player list. If you want it something different, that's completely fine. Just change it however you'd like. And we're also going to say money.parent is equal to leader stats. So we want our money object, our integer value, to end up in this leader stats folder. And then we're going to just set a default value. So I'm going to put money.value is equal to 10,000. So that gives us a good sort of point to start off with. So now we actually have our working leader stats script. So if we head into our game now, you can see that we actually have money in the top right hand corner. And if we click on our players tab and then open up our little Dropbox, you can see on my name, I actually have a leader stats folder. If I go into it, I have an integer value, which is our money. And you can see I can actually change it here as well. And there we go. So the only problem with this is that it's not going to save. I will go over that in a different video, but this is simply just for testing purposes. Whenever you're doing this in Roblox Studio, you don't really need it to like save or anything like that. I will be going over it in the future, but it is really complicated, so it's something that I wouldn't really target towards beginners for now. But anyway, the next thing we need to do, now that we have our leader stats set up, we're going to go into our GUI, and we're going to go into our button. So make sure you just have a button that says send on it or something that has some sort of significance. We're going to click on the little white plus and we're going to say local script. And we're just going to call this send money local. So what we're going to be doing in this script is we want, whenever we press this, to fetch the information from here. So we're going to fetch the name of the player we want to send it to, and we're going to fetch the amount of money that we want to send. And then once we click that button, it's going to send it off to the server, which will then process our request. So let's go back into our script. We're just going to delete the default text as always, and we're going to say local button equals script.parent. So we'll grab our button, and then let's also specify our text boxes. So we're going to say local name TB, that's name text box, equals button.parent.name text box. Then we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to say local amount text box is equal to name TB dot parent dot amount text box. So that has now given us our button, our name text box, and our amount text box. Then we need to actually get the player. So this is our player. So we're going to say local player equals game colon get service players dot local player. Local player simply means the player who is handling this GUI. So you can have multiple people at one time handling this GUI, and this script will store their individual names as it would be on their client. For example, if I'm here and I've got player 2 over here who's also using the same GUI, and he clicks send and I click send, my name is inside my script and his name is inside his script. So now we actually need to get our money. So we're going to look for our current player's money, so my money. We're going to say local money equals player colon wait for child leader stats dot money. So what we're doing is we're fetching that player object. Remember how we saw it in the little players tab up here? And we've got our name and we go into it and there was the leader stats thing. So we're fetching that. So this is the player object, and then we're getting the money on the end of it. Then we actually need to make an event so that the server can communicate with the client and we can actually process the transaction correctly. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to our replicated storage and we're going to press the little plus. We're going to search for remote event. Add a new remote event. I'm just going to call this send money event. You can call it whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to go back into our local script now, and we're just going to say local event is equal to game colon get service replicated storage colon wait for child send money event. So we are getting replicated storage and we're waiting for send money event to load. This script will not run until this is loaded. So now we are just going to define an empty variable. So we're going to say local send amount. So we don't actually need to put anything after this because we're going to be changing that later on. So that's just going to be nil or 0. It's not going to have a value at all. Let's get what happens when we click the button. So we're going to say button dot mouse button one click connect function. We're going to go down a line and we're going to say if money dot value, that's our player's money, is bigger than or equal to, and we want to check if our money is actually bigger than the amount that's in here, because if we send, if our money is smaller than the amount we've put in there, how are we ever gonna, we're not gonna be able to send the money, we'll go into the negatives and we won't be right. So we're gonna say to number, so we're gonna convert our text to a number, because if we had a string in there, then it wouldn't work. So we need to make sure the server is taking it as a number and not as a string. So we're going to say amount text box dot text, and to number amount tb dot text is bigger than 0 then. So that might look a little bit complicated. All we're actually doing is we're checking if our money is bigger or equal to the amount that we've specified in our little amount box that we want to send over, and if our amount box is actually bigger than 0, because if we don't want to be accepting values of -2, for example, because how does that even work? That's just giving free money. So that checks for that pretty much. So we're going to go down a line and we're going to send amount. So this is our empty variable we created earlier. We're going to say is equal to toNumber amount tb dot text. So what this means is that send amount now has the value that was inside our amount box. If I was sending 1000 and I click that, now our send amount value is 1000. So we're going to go down again and we're going to make a for loop. Now I did do this in my last video and it is a little bit complicated, but I'll try and explain it the best way I can. So essentially we need to check that once we click this button, is there actually a valid player in our player box that we've put here, because we don't just want to put Dave in here, right? And there's no one called Dave and it's obviously not going to work. So we need to loop through all of the players inside here and just check if that is a valid player. And if so, then we'll continue with the script. So we're going to say for I, comma, player in game colon get service, players, get players, do. And all this is doing is we're incrementing by I, and we're fetching a player object in our game get service players, and then we're getting the players. So we're saying game.getService players, and then get players. So this is going to return a table with all of our players that will be inside it. So we're now going to say if name text box dot text is equal to player dot name, then, so this is saying if our name box is equal to a valid player's name that we've entered, then we're going to continue and we're going to say local player to receive equals player. And then we're going to say event colon fire server send amount comma player to receive. Now, if those two lines didn't really make a lot of sense to you, I'll quickly go through it. So what we're essentially doing is we're saying if the name matches, then we're going to make a new variable. So local player to receive. So this is the person who will be receiving the money. And then we're going to pass it on to the server. So we're firing our event. And then with this, we can send in information that the player can be able to use. So the thing is with a remote event is that it automatically sends through the player's name, as in the player who sent this request, as a similar argument. So we're only sending through send amount and player to receive, but there's actually 3 arguments that the server is taking. So for example, what the server sees is player who sent the request, send amount, player to receive. So when we actually access this in our next script that we're going to create, this is what it's going to look like. I'll explain it a bit better when we get there, but all you need to know is that we're passing through the amount that we want to send to the player and the player who's going to be receiving it. So that's all we need to do for this local script, but now we need to actually handle it on the server. So we're going to go back over to server script service, we're going to click the little white plus, and we're going to add another script. This is our last script, don't worry, we're almost there. I'm just going to name it send money script. Delete the default text, and this one's going to be a bit shorter, and I'll be able to explain this one a lot easier. It's just the local one that's quite difficult for beginners. So we're going to say local event equals game colon get service replicated storage colon wait for child send money event. So we're doing the exact same thing we did in our money script where we got the send event. So we need to check when this event has actually been fired. Once some information has gone through it, what are we going to do? So we're going to say event.onServerEvent colon connect function, and then we need to pass through our arguments. So like I said, it already sends through our player automatically. So it's sending through me and our amount that we want to send and the player who's going to receive it. So we're going to say player to send, which is us, so we're sending the money, the amount to send, which is just how much we were trying to send over, and the player who's going to be receiving it, so player to receive. So we're now going to say local send money, so this is going to be our money equals player to send colon wait for child leader stats dot money. So this is our money, so we're going to be checking on the server that we have enough money to send, but we also need the other person's money in order to modify it. So we're going to say local receive money equals player to receive colon wait for child leader stats dot money. So we have our money here, which is player to send's money, which is us, and then we have the player who's going to be receiving it. We need to just check one more final time on the server that we definitely have enough money to send to that player. So we're going to say if send money dot value is bigger than or equal to toNumber amount to send, then. So all we're simply doing here is we're saying if our money is bigger or equal to the amount we want to send, and we have to two-number it just to make sure like a string hasn't slipped through the cracks. That's all we have to do that for. So all we're saying is our value bigger than the value we want to send, or is it equal to it? So now, once all the final checks have been done, we can actually process this request and we can send that money to the other player. So we're going to say send money.value is equal to send money.value minus amount to send. So we're taking away however much we're trying to send from our money, and then we're going to say receive money.value is equal to receive money.value plus amount to send. So we're taking away the amount that we have and we're giving them the amount that we're trying to send. And then we can just print a little extra message just to tell us it's successfully gone through. We're going to say successfully sent, and that should be everything. And we're just going to quickly double check and see if everything works now. So we can see now that I just have two players here. So I have player 1 and I have player 2, each with their own individual GUI. So player 1 has 11,000 and player 2 has 9,000. So I'm on player 2 right now, and I'm going to try send player 1 1,000. And there we go. So it sends, and now player 1 has 1,000 more than they did before, and player 2 has 1,000 less. And then I'm also going to do the same on here. So this is player 1. I'm going to try send to player 2, and I'm only going to send 500. And there we go. It does the exact opposite. So that's everything you really need to know for this, and this will work fluidly no matter what. And if this did help, please make sure to like and subscribe. I know this is a bit of a longer video, but I'm just starting to make a few more little more advanced things as we go along, but I will be going back to a lot of the basics very soon. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.